Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the committee. I too am in support of this bill, as has been said, the most recent case that got a lot of attention was Anna Chambers' case, where these two officers did have sex with her when she was handcuffed and claimed it was with consent. Even after the law, and shortly after that, the law was changed in New York, but they still did not prosecute those officers. They did not prosecute those officers for rape because the victim was told that it would be too difficult to prosecute given her postings on social media. Which would have been used to argue that I guess that she was in some way likely to have consented to this. Didn't make much sense, but that was what she was told. So these two officers got off without any criminal consequences whatsoever. And that's unfortunately the loophole that exists, and this bill does try to fix that. It says the new offense that it creates of custodial sexual assault does not apply if the assailant can be found guilty of first-degree sexual assault or second-degree sexual assault. So it's just for the cases that cannot be prosecuted under current law. But it is unusually lenient for a sexual assault case because the maximum sentence is only 3 years in jail, and the perpetrator does not have to register as a sex offender. There isn't even any requirement that the perpetrator has to leave their employment as a law enforcement officer. So in some ways, this is a very lenient bill, but it's designed for these cases that are hard to prosecute or under current laws or under current mores don't get prosecuted. And the bill does two good things. One is it puts on the books very explicitly the message that being an officer should never have sex with somebody in their custodial power. It makes that principle very clear and writes it into the law. And that may make it easier to prosecute, to deter the actual cases of first-degree sexual assault that can be prosecuted. Makes it easier to deter and prosecute that by writing it into the law that there's no exception for officers, that someone in an officer's custody can't consent. And in addition to sending that message of deterrence and encouraging prosecution of first-degree assault, it also furnishes an extra offense that you can charge somebody with when it's not possible to prove in court that the defendant was unwilling. It says even if the officer claims that even if the officer claims the victim was willing, still this is not acceptable. It's a crime, so it allows prosecution in those cases as well. So thank you.
Thank you. Any questions or comments for Mr. Rose?